I'm going to be talking for about 25 minutes and hopefully something interesting to say. I work for a company called Bell ID. I'll give you 2 minutes on who is Bell ID. I'm not going to do a sales pitch on you, but so Bell ID has been involved in smart card projects since 1989. Our core proposition is a smart card management product, so we're a software vendor. We've been involved in the payments side of that business since 2003. Our heritage actually comes from ID, hence the Bell ID name, but we've been in payments for about 7 or 8 years now. Our core competence, I should have said we've been involved in mobile actually probably for a surprisingly long time, since 2006. This was a stadium access and electronic purse project in the Netherlands for one of the soccer clubs there. And our core competence is smart card management software, so we're all about managing applications that will go into a chip. Historically, that's been a chip that's been sitting in a plastic card, and obviously, as we're now going to be talking about mobile, it's really a lot of the processes are the same, but now we're going to be putting the application in a chip that happens to be in a mobile phone. So we have expertise in card, mobile, application, and key management. 3 out of those 4 are required for card management, 3 out of the 4 required for mobile management. And we have business in the payments world, EMV, in ID, and in mobile. We're a relatively small company, only 70 people, but because we're focused on this niche, we probably have the biggest development team in terms of smart card management and this core piece of business. We have 3 offices. The majority of our staff are in the Netherlands, in an office in Rotterdam. We also have an office in the United States, and the local office here is in Bahrain. I'm not going to go through this slide in detail. I just wanted to throw up the fact that we have these 3 sectors. The core of all 3 sectors is the same. That is a token manager, so it's managing the device, whether that's a piece of plastic or a mobile phone that is in the hands of the application user, formerly known as a card holder. And then for each of these markets, there are some subtle differences. Obviously, the requirements of a bank are different to the requirements of a government with a national ID card. And when we talk about mobile, well, we're really talking about providing services to financial institutions, who we already know well, also to TSMs. So we are enabling technology to provide TSMs. And obviously we talk to mobile network operators. So you want to put an application on a phone. Do you need a TSM? TSM is a phrase I'm sure you will have heard numerous times over the last day and a half if you've sat through any of these presentations. The concept of adding an application into an NFC device ought to be simple. You have a device, it has a chip in it, or a secure element. That secure element can be embedded in the handset. It can be in a micro SD card that can be plugged into a phone, or it can be in a SIM. And obviously the SIM vendors will be promoting SIMs. Some of the device manufacturers are promoting their embedded secure elements, and there are micro SD vendors out there which enable the issuer, perhaps a bank, to issue this kind of program without reference to the network operator, because the micro SD is effectively just a chip card that happens to be sitting in a mobile phone. And of course we can put a whole range of applications in the handset. And as I said, with our background, we have experience with transit, with loyalty, with identity, and of course most of the hype around NFC at the moment is looking at putting payments in a mobile phone. So it ought to be easy, right? Well, first of all, there's a whole load of application providers that will need to talk to a whole load of network operators. So I apologize for the acronyms. MNO is mobile network operator, or telco, carrier. MNO seems to be the common phrase these days. So here I have 4 mobile network operators talking to 10 or so different application providers, 3 banks, 3 transit operators, 3 other players, maybe government entities with a certificate or something. Somehow they all have to communicate with each other. So that's lesson 1. You're going to have to cooperate. You're going to have some kind of business relationship with people on the other side of the ecosystem. Utopia would be that someone sits in the middle, acts as a trusted broker. This is what the GSMA have been promoting. This is the picture everyone likes to see. That is everyone unless they're a bank, a network operator, or someone with a vested interest in making money. The guys who are selling TSM solutions will tell you this is a great way to go, and I guess if we're really starting with a blank sheet of paper, this would be a nice idea. The reality is that competitive pressures start to break that apart. we see two types of TSM emerging in the market now. There's what's known as a root TSM. That looks after the interests of the network operator, so it's about managing the secure element, whether it's in the SIM, whether it's embedded, or it could even be under the ownership of the application provider in that micro SD card. But typically the root TSM will be acting in the interest of the network operator, securing the secure element, creating the security domains, and then the application provider, perhaps a bank, will have access to the supplementary security domain, and they will take care of their part of the business, which is, as it is with chip cards, generating keys, securing the application, doing the data preparation, loading that application into that chip. So the best case scenario that it looks like we're going to end up with is with a root TSM acting for all the network operators, if they can agree, and a service provider TSM acting for all or some of the application providers. So this is still a relatively clean picture, but there has to be a relationship between the TSMs, one looking after the secure element, one looking after the supplementary security domains within that secure element. So that's lesson 2. When you talk about TSM, you need to understand what are you really asking for? Which side of this equation are you on? So I think I already said this, but so the MNO is likely to go down the SIM route. That's the piece that they control. The handset manufacturer may offer embedded. We see that from BlackBerry now putting embedded secure elements in all their new devices. And as I said, a service provider could also be interested in the root side if they're issuing a micro SD. And the root also creates these supplementary security domains. On the service provider side, they provision, manage, load, personalize the applications into that supplementary security domain on behalf of the service providers, which could be banks, loyalty, transport operators. So there's the picture. That's lesson 2. What we're actually seeing in the market is that already starts to break apart again. So we have here MNO A has decided to have their own TSM, either in-house or contracted with, for example, our friends from G&D who were just speaking. Then in this case, MNOs B and C have decided to work together and create a joint TSM, and MNO D has their own TSM. On the service provider side, this is actually an optimistic picture, I think. 2 TSMs acting on behalf of 10 different service providers. Maybe that's G&D and Gemalto, Network International, or some other TSM entity. But we're still starting to get a relatively complicated picture again. So who in the ecosystem would like to be or would need a TSM? Well, obviously the card issuer has to look after their interests. So this could be a bank in the payment world, could be a government if it's a national ID card, could be a transit authority if we're going to use this for ticketing. They may operate their own service provider TSM, or they may rent a service. I think in the early days we'll see a lot of people using service. I think it'll be as it was with EMV, that at some point those issuers will realize that that's not the most cost-effective method, and as the technology becomes more mainstream, we'll see the functionality migrating back into the domain of the issuers. The network operators obviously have an interest because of the root TSM. The handset manufacturers have an interest. Just a quick plug for Bell ID. To be honest, we don't care. We support all of those. We're involved in projects for all of those. We're working with a global device manufacturer with their embedded secure elements. We're working with a network operator on a SIM project with SIMs from 2 different vendors. And we're working on a micro SD project. I think one of the benefits we bring is that we're not wedded to a particular SIM. We're not going to try and sell you SIMs. We're going to support whichever SIMs the network operator selects. So looking at that in a slightly different way, at the bottom here we have the service providers, the banks, talking to either their own TSM or a combined TSM. That service provider TSM talks to the root TSM, who talks to the network operator, or multiple network operators. The point I wanted to make here is that a lot of banks are managing their smart card programs already in-house. They're doing their own data preparation in-house. And to be honest, the idea that this is really so complex to go to the mobile model is really not the case. The only component missing, if you're already managing your payment applications for plastic, is the ability to deliver that securely to a mobile phone. So we're talking about a delivery mechanism, not about some whole wide, complex piece of infrastructure. So the other thing that we've seen in the market already is banks that already have these systems just saying, can we plug in a delivery manager? Maybe they go to a service for that delivery part, but I think we'll start seeing the market migrate towards that, where the bank will say, this is part of my normal business. I don't want to get involved with the route. That's the responsibility of the network operator. But for me, managing the app, securing the app, delivering the app to the secure element, that's my responsibility. Managing the phone, the secure element, the device management, that can be the responsibility of the network operator. So NFC until now, lots of pilots. I don't know how many hundreds of pilots. Typically not very sophisticated, typically one device, typically a single operating system, single application, a single merchant. What you'll normally see is one company trialing this. It works on a particular phone that they give physically to a user, an employee. It works in the coffee shop in the lobby. Great for testing user experience. Doesn't really test the complexity of a rollout where you have multiple handsets, multiple chip types, multiple applications. So lesson 5, the rollout is quite different to the pilot. The pilot tests the user experience. The actual rollout experience is all about managing millions of subscribers, managing embedded secure elements and USIMs in a mixed environment, managing the life cycle of all those applications, managing multiple applications from different application providers, managing multiple security domains, and all the keys that are required to secure these. And it's all about scalability, compliancy. Obviously, the banks will know about compliancy in terms of the card schemes. And really, most of these requirements are very similar to large-scale smart card schemes. So scalability and security are really key issues. How do I ensure that's secure? Well, keys, probably, cryptography. So what am I going to do about key management? Well, yeah, we can take care of that. In terms of scalability, well, I'm in danger of repeating myself now, but multiple millions, many. Speed and performance becomes an issue. A lot of users all calling into a central system. And we believe that in terms of managing all of this, there's a requirement for a clear separation of responsibilities. So there are services to be managed, there's technologies to be managed, there are modules such as the SIM, there's the device, and other components. And one of the challenges we've seen with the TSMs that we've implemented is when you get a SIM vendor that's very focused on having their SIM supported, less focused on seeing their competitors' SIM supported. And we've had to work quite hard with a couple of the MNOs we're working with to ensure that we can support multiple SIM types. So I think one of the things to consider is, if you're going to go to the SIM vendor for the TSM, is that the SIM vendor you're going to be married to for the rest of this product life? Or is it something you want to address early on? In terms of the components, sorry, this immediately jumps into what looks like quite a complicated slide, but you can see much of this is a redrawn picture that you saw earlier. On the right-hand side, we have application providers and players generally involved in the process. The network operator, in this case, has an internal root TSM managing their own secure elements. The bank is doing their own data prep, and that's feeding into what we call a secure element manager. We have a device capability manager as a component that will wake up the device, ask what kind of protocol it wants to use to communicate, and will then communicate with the device. And the other element to look at here is, from a bank perspective, is about talking directly to that secure element, not only acquiring the transactions, which is fairly straightforward if you have a contactless point of sale, but in terms of prepaid, you can manage top-up. So you can talk directly to the handset wherever it is to add value, to reset counters using EMV scripts. So the bank may end up talking directly to the handset without going through the TSM in some circumstances. In terms of these protocols talking to the handset, SMS P2P is a legacy. That's what you're going to use for downloading games and ringtones and this kind of stuff. When you're talking about secure applications and speed, you probably don't want to be sending multiple binary SMSs to get a lot of data to a phone. So we see these other protocols, CAT-TP, TCP, and RAM over HTTP becoming much more the way forward. For us as a technology company, we support all of those. We can actually ask the phone which one of those it wants to use to talk to us. So using a specific example, one of the projects we're working on where we have a bank, actually there's a couple of banks and an access control company involved in this project, but here I'm showing a couple of external TSMs, a bank, talking to our system through a global platform messaging interface. We then have a lot of internal components, some of which will be common to the card business. So we have a chip configurator managing cards scripts. We have a data preparation device, and we still need to do data preparation, whether the application is in a card or in a mobile phone. We have to manage top-up. We may want to reset the passcodes. That's not the PIN, it's the passcode for the wallet. We need to manage the life cycle. We need to install, delete, lock, unlock applications. We need to manage the security domain, manage the keys. There's a billing element, potentially, which has to be somehow managed at the server and interface to an external party. And there's, of course, personalization. Over on the device side, in this case, we're talking about RAM over HTTP. So we're communicating with the wallet in the device. And then the wallet is communicating through an internal protocol with the security domain. Well, no need to go into the details. In this case, it's JSR 177 for anybody who knows what that is, and I don't. So wallet. You'll hear a lot about wallets, especially if you read the press. Do you need a wallet? What is a wallet? Well, a wallet at its simplest term is like the wallet in your pocket. It's an interface that stores other entities which are doing more technical things in the background. It's meant to make the technology simple to use for the user. So I would, for example, have a wallet on a BlackBerry device like this. I see my card. I can scroll down, select different cards, choose the card I'm going to pay with in the same way that I would take a card out of my traditional wallet and I can pay with it. So in this case, the wallet is really just a user interface to allow card selection. That technology can be white labeled, OEM'd. Typically the issuer will want to brand that. Of course, it's got to be secure. The technical part inside the phone has to be secure because the wallet has to talk to the secure element. There's a whole new area of potential hacking here where we're talking about how do I get access to the card details in the phone. I've got lots of other stuff being loaded to the phone. How do I get access to the secure element? Spoofing browsers to get access inside the phone. There's a lot of detail that has to be taken care of. So a wallet can be more than just a fancy logo on the front of a device. Of course, in the banking world, it has to adhere to the payment scheme specifications. And in general, I think the term wallet is quite abused. It means different things to different people. It's primarily the user interface. Could be in the device. You may have a BlackBerry that comes with a wallet preloaded. It could be a wallet that's sitting in the secure element. The issuer may ask you to download a wallet before they allow you to download the card. But it allows the user to interact securely with the application. You can use the wallet to load new applications if it's a generic wallet. But the wallet can be owned, provisioned, loaded by any of the entities in the ecosystem. So it could be the network operator, could be the device manufacturer, could be the issuer, could be someone like Google, for example. So is Google just a user interface? Not really. I mean, they brand their service as Google Wallet, but it's much more than just a screen display of what's behind the phone. If you look at the Google Wallet, it's really a front end to manage a whole lot of other payment devices and other NFC applications in the background. So is PayPal already a wallet? PayPal already allows you to register multiple payment devices in the background and front them with a PayPal button. So you could almost say the PayPal button on a website is a wallet if you take it to that extreme. So lesson 7 here is when you talk about I need a wallet, you need to understand what do you actually need. What does a wallet mean to you? I talked about the connectivity. So one of the lessons we learned is that a payment app isn't a ringtone. We've had a lot of players saying, well, yeah, I already have an OTA, I already have a relationship with the MNO. The MNO already has an OTA. Probably they have a SMS P2P OTA, which allows them to download settings, download ringtones, this kind of stuff. In the new world, it needs to be more than that. So there are these other protocols that I mentioned earlier. So when you're thinking about loading data over the air, you need to understand what is the over-the-air device really doing. OTA is a phrase that you'll get used to very quickly once you're talking about these kind of things, it's one of those acronyms that we had to learn quite quickly. So not only does it have to use these different protocols, but it has to be able to communicate to lots of different UICCs, whether that's in the SIM, whether it's a secure memory card, or whether it's an embedded secure element. So communication is key. Well, we would say this, wouldn't we? Probably is the reaction to this slide. So we support multiple SIM vendors. Our experience is that the SIM vendors want to own this business. They want to offer you a TSM service. They want you to use their SIMs with their service. And in some cases, some issuers have been happy to do that. Some network operators have been happy to do that. In other cases, it's been quite challenging, and there's a demand in the market to break out of that, which is one of the things that we're trying to meet. So as a technology provider, we'll sit in the middle, we'll connect to everybody, take data from anywhere, send it to anywhere. We have no other vested interest in any other elements of the ecosystem other than the management system that we're putting in place to enable the TSM. So the last thing I wanted to say, and actually relatively on time, is there have been a lot of pilots. Most of the pilots that have been implemented have been disposable. So there is a pilot with 50 phones. At the end of the pilot, you hand the phone back. It's all over. Thank you very much. The phone was pre-personalized. It worked with that one merchant, and everybody thought it was great. I think we're way past that stage now. That's been happening for 2.5 years. And even if you want to implement a pilot now, I would encourage you to base that on technology that can be more than a pilot. Otherwise, you'll be running a pilot for a year, and then you'll be throwing it away and starting again with technology that can grow to the next level. So, yeah, certainly we would advocate, if you're going to run a pilot system, it should be on a system that can be extended. And these are the steps that we typically see in these kind of migrations from pilot to rollout. And I won't go through them in detail. So this isn't a lesson. This was a few things that we've learned. I was going to put them in as additional lessons, but I think it's more a case of these are observations and predictions based on what we've seen so far. Certainly NFC is attractive to early adopters, young users. The user loves it. It's very hard to get the phone back from them after a pilot. Banks are able to build their portfolios, and we've seen this with some of the early players in this market, that they'll tie up with the network operator, perhaps with a co-branded card, branded as the network operator but issued by the bank, very quickly building a portfolio that then can be migrated from plastic to mobile, to NFC after the event. So suddenly you have access to the subscribers of the network operators, who are typically much greater volumes than the card holders of the bank. So there is an opportunity for banks to grow the business by getting involved in NFC. Despite the utopia of a single TSM, we will see exclusive packages, one-to-one relationships between the leading network operator, the leading bank, whoever they are. We have seen attempts to set up national systems. In most cases, they've failed due to commercial pressures. There are places where they probably will succeed, but they're limited. We're involved in a couple of those on both sides of the fence. So we're involved with one where there will be a consortium of network operators in one country, where all three of the network operators are working together as a single entity and are implementing a route TSM. And the banks are deciding right now whether they're going to have a single service provider TSM or maintain competitiveness by each having a TSM. Probably there'll be a mixture. So at the beginning, not everyone will have an NFC device. This happens to be an NFC BlackBerry. There are obviously a lot of other devices that are non-NFC enabled. I've also got a Samsung Galaxy, which in the UK isn't NFC. In other parts of the world it is. So be aware that you can't offer this to all of your subscribers or customers immediately. There will be people who will have an NFC device and don't even know it. So there's also going to be people who won't want to adopt the technology. So this could be patchy as it rolls out. Gaining early market share, as I said earlier, is a good opportunity to build a portfolio. The large SP-TSM providers, so these are the big names that are promoting their TSM services, are using those services, will use those services to backsell their existing services. So what we're seeing already is those big players who can be a TSM, and this is a message really for the independent processors, the local personalization bureaus. if you're not able to offer TSM services, you're going to lose business to your big competitors, and then they're going to take the business for the plastic as well. And we're starting to see some of that already. So there's quite a demand for a lot of players to become a TSM. And I think a prediction really for the next couple of years is that banks will realize that an SP-TSM is really about delivery. Most of the technical difficult stuff is already being taken care of, either in-house or by a bureau. The new element is just this delivery element. So, quick summary. You'll need to cooperate. An application issuer is not a card issuer. You may have been a card issuer before, now you're a payment application issuer, and the card doesn't belong to you. You're not going to issue it. The device is being issued by someone else. You are delivering the application. You do have to do that securely, but you're going to have to talk to the person who owns the token. Not all TSMs are the same. Remember the terminology of root and service provider and decide which one you are. TSMs need to communicate because there's not going to be a single TSM. Multiple players might want to be or need a TSM, and the functionality is different for each of those. So consider that when you consider TSM to be a generic term, that it means different things to different players. A rollout is very different to a pilot. 50 phones, one app in one coffee shop is easy. It's not so easy when you roll that out. So take care of that. Consider that scalability and security are the key issues. A payment experience trial is one thing, but the rollout is different. Wallet is a variable term, so define what you mean by wallet. A payment app isn't a ringtone, so be aware that if you're a network operator and you have an OTA, or your network operator you're talking to has an OTA, that doesn't mean that they're best placed to manage these kind of applications. Consider vendor independence. And lastly, a pilot can roll out, but only if you plan to do that. Most of the pilots we've seen today have been disposable, as I said before. And relatively on time, I managed to rush through that, and that was me done. I'm happy to answer questions if anybody has any. Since it's 1 o'clock and it's lunchtime, I'm also happy to meet anyone on our booth. We're 2 blocks that way. Bell ID is the company name. Happy to share business cards with anyone who wants to follow up afterwards. And other than that, I'll hand over to you guys. Thank you.